What's up, movie watchers, and welcome to episode 10 of the Lunar's Cut, your place for long-form, raw, unedited discussions about a TV show or movie that we are passionate about this week. I'm Kevin Kaine. That's Jordan, a special guest I'll introduce later, coming to join us for this discussion. If this is your first week here, welcome. We're glad you're joining us on the discussion. Secondly, what exactly is this show? Lunar's Cut is our safe space to talk about any kind of TV show or movie that week that we really are passionate about and want to talk about. Plot, visual, cinematography, leaps and logic, weird tangents, anything and everything in between. For an hour or more, probably more, we will talk your ears off and exhaust your mind holes about that movie this week. Each week we usually switch on and off. This week is actually a little bit special. Of course, if you haven't heard, there's this movie out that's making billions of dollars in like one weekend. So we're going to talk about that as opposed
I think
to
they heard it.
Yeah.
I think they heard it.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone else heard. But before we do that, let's do some housekeeping. Where can you watch us? This show is part of the Movie Review YouTube channel. Also, you can find this podcast you can find this in a podcast form on various podcast services out there, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. As always, links to all those will be in the description. Also, shout out to Dan and the crew at Crowd and Sound Creative for awesome intro and outro music. You can find them for your creative needs at www.crowdandtown.com. All right, let's get this rolling. We are going to talk about Avengers Endgame. Real quick stat.
Woohoo!
Jordan, I want to maybe because we're the same age. These movies have been essentially around for like half of our lives.
Yeah, 2008 is Iron Man came out, right? So
yeah, it's been a while. Like it's a large chunk of our lives. Maybe not half, maybe closer to 30. Regardless,
yeah,
they've been a large part, at least for my life and your life, since you watched most of them.
For sure.
So real quick, this is my friend Jordan. Jordan,
What's up,
go ahead.
guys?
You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah.
You can describe yourself better than I can.
I'm here. I'm a big comic book movie fan. All the way since I could barely watch TV. Loved them all. Marvel comics, DC comics. When MCU was starting up and Iron Man was going to be the first movie, I was pretty pessimistic about it. To be honest, all of their best characters, in my opinion, were gone. They had sold them off and that's why they were able to sell them off, because those were their best characters. I thought really they only had Captain America and they didn't even have Hulk at the time that I was interested in, but it was superheroes, and so I was going to give it a shot. And with the first movie, I was pleasantly surprised that they were able to do that, and I think that kind of helped them, that it was something fresh, that people weren't seeing the same Batman, Superman over and over, and even Spider-Man at that time.
Yeah.
So,
how many times can we watch Batman's parents die? I think probably two more.
Yeah. I mean, Spider-Man is already, they don't even do the origin anymore when they reboot that. So,
good call. But
yeah, for sure. And so with these, I would say I started to say, second tier characters, even third tier in some cases, because of these movies. They're some of the most popular characters in pop culture, period, out today. And that's just crazy. It's a testament to these movies and how popular they are.
Yeah. And a lot of work that the Marvel Studios has put in to set the groundwork for this awesome, I don't know if they knew when they started if they were going to build to such a cap, such an ending, such a climax that Endgame is. But you figured that they were building for it and thinking about it. We can argue when they made Iron Man, did they think Endgame was happening, right? It was like a sparkle in the sky. But
so many things about the MCU are unprecedented, and it's just how everything's totally interwoven together. You can watch it. It's basically, I was thinking about it earlier today, it's like a season of TV, except each episode is 2.5, 3 hours long. Yeah. And it's crazy, unprecedented, awesome. I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah. So Travis is bowing out this week. He didn't really want to talk about this movie, and I was going to make someone talk about this movie that didn't want to talk about this movie. Likewise, he was not going to make me talk about the Rocky movie, which I don't care about Rocky movies. So if he wants to do a retrospective on Rocky, maybe he'll call you. I don't know. Like, it's just it's fine. Like, it's just I watch MMA and then I see Rocky take 82 shots to the head and he's fine, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like. I feel like
gloves have a lot of padding in them.
It's those 50-ounce gloves that they're wearing, like the bopper things, the little thing you feel there. Remember when you were a kid? Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Anyways, I digress. Yeah. Jordan and me have been friends since we went to college. We we bonded over comic books, and I think it was interesting about our friendship is also that we don't necessarily agree, even though we were both into comics.
True.
I think you said that Green Lantern's your favorite movie of all time. I think I have that on record.
I'm not sure. I don't know how drunk I was when you got me to say that, but that is not how I currently feel.
But I'm just messing with him. But I wanted to bring him in because I knew this was he would be able to hit me beat for beat, and I knew he watched all of these, and he's going to bring a perspective of a little more critical as opposed to me fanboying out because I'm really just a big fan of these movies. I will say real quick, spoiler-free review of this movie. Go watch this movie. Why haven't you watched this movie? Why are you part of the very 1% that haven't watched this movie? Apparently, because it made 1.2 billion. In
some people just can't deal with it. They could only focus on Game of Thrones this weekend, and then they wanted the theaters to clear out. But no, that's not a good excuse. Should have been there opening night.
Yeah. It's an experience. I will say I don't watch Game of Thrones. That ship sailed on me before I could hitch a ride, and I've just been kind of on the sidelines. But from what I hear about the episode on Sunday, meh.
I can't agree, but that's for another podcast.
That's just one I hear. But anyways, Endgame. This when people ask me like what I felt about it, I read a lot of people on Twitter like what they thought about it, and I think this is probably the best movie experience I've experienced in my life. The anticipation, the lead up, my personal lead up of watching one movie a week, all of the previous 21 movies leading up until this, because I'm a nerd, I'm single, I don't have a life, I can afford to do that. I did it for Infinity War, I did it for Endgame. So just my preparation, which is just for me personally, leading up to it, and then the payoff of this, everything that happened, then that's anxious and nervous I felt before the movie started, mainly because I was like, can I sit 3 hours and not piss during it? Because I'm not leaving. Like, I'm not skipping a part of this. I need to watch all of this. And then the way it ends, the amount of times I cried, the bow, it's a neat bow they put on this. Like, this is the best movie experience I've had in my life. And it's not just this movie, although this movie is a big part of it. It's the 11 years and 22 films in its entirety.
For sure.
It's been a wild ride, man. Wild ride. So my stupid recommendation, not recommendation, my rating system, Jordan, I don't know if you know, I don't like giving ratings. It's either it's on my DVD shelf or not.
Okay.
I'm buying. I don't know
who still buys DVDs or.
I do.
But,
okay. It's on my shelf, 4K Blu-ray. Day one. I'm gonna buy it and I'm gonna watch it I'm gonna watch it on my 65-inch OLED, and it's gonna be amazing. So go watch this movie. Jordan, what did you think? Real quick thoughts.
Well, I'm not ready to say it's my best movie all time. I think I need some more time to just digest it. It was so much movie.
Movie experience. Different.
So much movie experience. I had to strategize how I was gonna use the bathroom and make sure I didn't use it while the movie was on the screen. Yeah. But it was amazing for me. I think out of all the MCU movies, it was the most emotional, inspired the most empathy, especially for being a new dad. My daughter's 10 months old. There's so many characters that have emotional moments with their daughters. Mm-hmm. So that really hit home for me. It was amazing. The third act, amazing. The only thing that was kind of holding me back from saying, hey, I'm all in on this, was some of the logic didn't mesh for me right away. We can get into that later. Yeah. But as far as just the scale, the epicness, I don't know. It was awesome.
It's like an event comic bled from the pages and put itself on the screen. Like,
yes.
Yeah. And we both probably read, I've purchased and followed the Spider-Verse event like 4 or 5 years ago. So, where they have that stupid list where it's like, here's the list of all the comics that tie in that you have to buy. Yeah. So I went ahead.
Trap before. Yeah.
Yeah. I bought them all. I wanted to experience it. I was like, I want to see what this is like, because I've heard pros and cons from huge
I did that with the Brightest Day or Blackest Night Green Lantern series, and it was like every comic book series DC had a little storyline part of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's pros and cons to that. And in the movies space, I think it's a little more digestible as far as like, well, you can pick and choose if you want, but the best way to get the experience is seeing all of them. But that's what it was like. It was like this is the culmination of a big event on screen, and
Yes.
it's not perfect. There is problems with it, but it's fan servicey as hell. It's
Yep.
a love letter to fans like us that
Right.
look more into the details, and it's just a hell of a lot of fun, and it has a lot of heart, and actually it's pretty funny too. Like it's a testament to not only Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige, but the Russo brothers for being able to direct these huge group movies and make them work, right? Like on paper, these
Oh,
should work.
no, very
Um,
difficult. So many characters. How do you make people care about the characters when there's 20 that are
yeah,
integral to the story?
yeah.
That's amazing. Yep.
So go watch this movie. That's our spoiler review. Real quick, I'm waving my arms for spoilers for people who are visually watching it, but right now we're about to go into spoilers. This is your chance to get out of here. I don't know why you haven't watched this movie. I guess maybe it would benefit someone who doesn't know if they want to watch it, and maybe we'll convince them to watch it. It seems weird, like it seems really late in the day to like what's this Marvel stuff?
Yeah, I don't think even if you've only seen 10 of the other MCU movies, you have to see this one.
Yeah,
It's like,
it is true. This is but anyways, real quick, this movie, let's just say like real quick highlights. I do feel like this was a really neat bow for the old Avengers guard, the Avengers from the first Avengers movie. There's a neat
yes.
bow tied on all those characters, and I love that. I do.
And if I can just add the one criticism, well, two criticisms, but this one major of Infinity War was that I thought they killed the wrong people. They snapped the wrong people because obviously Spider-Man and Black Panther, who've only had a movie each, are coming back to the MCU,
Right.
right? But this really, it should have been Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2. They don't make sense by themselves. They're really a two-part movie, and with them together, I think it's almost perfect.
Right. And that's a 6-hour movie essentially.
Yes, yeah. Obviously, there's problems. Yeah.
Okay, but for this movie, me and Jordan discussed it, and we were thinking normally on the Lunar's Cut we discuss the acts. I recap them as best as I can without trailing off too much, and then we kind of discuss what we liked and dislikes, and then that's how we proceed. With this movie, we actually I think we're kind of admitting it's going to be more than one episode. If Jordan likes this experience enough and wants to join me again for a second episode, I'm totally down for it. But our idea was to let's go through the main cast of the original Avengers and follow their arc from in this movie. We'll tie in other movies as well, especially probably Infinity War, but it's mainly this movie because that's what this podcast is about. That's what this video is about. It's about Endgame. But we'd be remiss if we didn't call back to other things and events that happen. So that's kind of our plan. We're going to go through the different characters. We're going to start with Hawkeye because goddamn, this show starts off with Hawkeye, and so the
Opening
movie
scene,
in the
hard
heart,
hitting.
man. Ah,
It's awesome. There are audible,
yeah,
sighs and moans in the audience.
because everyone knew. Like
Yeah,
in my audience, everyone knew what happened. But so we open up on Hawkeye's farm. We see the ankle bracelet. He is under house arrest from the events of Civil War when he went on Cap's side, and he took the deal. And they talked about in previous movies that he decided to retire and have house arrest, kind of like Ant-Man, to be able to stick with his family. So they're off on their farm having a good time. He's teaching his daughter how to be an archer. All the reservoirs are just calling out. This is a Kate Bishop reference, which Kate Bishop was a Hawkeye, the first female Hawkeye, but he taught her, and then she became Hawkeye. Cool. I like you mentioned when we were talking, it's not his daughter, from what I can call, and we might be wrong, everyone. It's fine, but I think
right.
you're right. I don't think she's his daughter, but it's kind of a hint, right? Like he's teaching a young woman how to be an archer. It's kind of what it's
Yeah.
hinting. But so we have his dumb kids that are that like mayonnaise and hot dogs, and then
Yeah.
the other two people are sane.
Just normal
and,
family life, trying to bond with his family. Yeah.
Yeah, and he looks one direction, looks back, and we as an audience see his daughter dust away, or at least we see
Yeah.
the last 90% of the dust away,
Mhm.
just enough for people who remember Infinity War, like, oh, she's gone, and he turns around and his family's gone, and we
He's
have a great
panic.
yeah, the great show of panic, the zigzag running, like he doesn't know what's going on, he doesn't know where they are. I think he calls for his dogs. I think like he kind of whistles. I don't know if that's how he gets his sons with him, but whatever.
Yeah, I assume that was his kids just being military guy or
Yeah. So the we start off this movie, if in case you weren't sad enough from the events of Infinity War and all the people that died, we were just like, just in case you were like, hey, whatever happened to Hawkeye? Oh, his whole family got snapped, and they're all
yeah,
gone.
yeah,
And that is the start of this movie, and we're gonna kind of follow his arc. So we're gonna skip past some stuff, but that's a good place to start uh, with Hawkeye. And we also discussed that Hawkeye and Romanoff's storylines are very tied together in
right,
this story. So we're going to kind of interweave them together.
right.
The very first time we see uh, uh, Romanoff, she has a very small part in the beginning of this movie.
Hmm.
Uh, Whenever Tony gets back, there's a big argument, and they finally decide to go get Thanos. Right? She's in it,
Right.
and I'm only bringing it up because she's there, and she's like, "Yeah, we should go get Thanos. We should totally do this." But she has a very
Right.
small part in this. It's more driven by the people who are pissed off in Captain Marvel.
Yeah, but I
Um,
still think, I mean, they give her, she's still a respected member of the team. And so,
right?
and just like in Civil War, I mean, her opinion mattered a lot. So I think she's
Definitely.
still, even in the beginning part, you can like, okay, are we doing this? And Black Widow's like, yeah, we're doing this.
We're doing this. We're doing this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cap cusses. No one says anything funny thing to him. He's like, "Let's go kill this son of a bitch."
Yeah.
So to go real quick, and I just bring it up. They kill Thanos in like the first 15 minutes of this movie, which is kind of
It
like
seemed really fast. Yeah.
I was like, okay, movie over. Like everyone was kidding about the 3 hours. Like we're screwed, and Thanos is dead, and then that's how we're gonna live life. So we get the big flash forward, which will come back through a lot of these characters' stories we talk
So what
about.
did you think? It flashes 5, and I was like,
Right?
okay, months, months. And then it
Months,
says
months,
years, and I'm like, oh shit, they did that.
and then later, just to like
Okay.
cement it.
Yeah.
I like that reveal because like you and me, like we were kind of like 5 months. It's not 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 decades? Nah. 5 eons? No.
I
And then
was
it's
not
5 years.
expecting 5 years. Yeah.
But it gives you enough time to see that people either have moved on or not, and it also thematically from like a movie standpoint or a story standpoint, it gives us characters that we'll talk about later, like Iron Man's daughter, and it gives us more
Right.
stakes. These people have
I
lives
yeah.
now.
I thought 5 years was great. Yeah,
Yeah,
like just like you said, have they moved on or not? How have they all dealt with this? They've all dealt with it in different ways, and or have they moved on? 5 years is great.
yep. And so that's kind of where we're going to go with. Let's go ahead and start with Romanoff because they both kind of meet up eventually, and we'll kind of hit Hawkeye here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Romanoff is very much in a mind space of she lost a large part of her family,
Right.
the only family she cares about, probably the only family she remembers or has, and she feels like she needs to do something. And we get a great scene of her having talking with Rocket and Nebula on one screen, Okoye, Captain Marvel with the new haircut. Did you like the haircut? I like the haircut. Did you like the haircut?
I didn't. No, but I mean, from a comics perspective, sure, but no, I didn't like it on Brie Larson. No.
Okay, gotcha. And then Rhodey, and she's pretty much just they're policing like they normally do. They're kind of trying to keep the peace, and she's very much in it. And she's eating a peanut butter sandwich. She seems her hair is like grown out red. She did
Right.
have blonde. I'm assuming because she was trying to keep her identity hidden in the after the events of
Infinity
Civil.
War. Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's like red, and then the tips
Yeah.
are
Red roots are very long, grown out. But
yeah,
I think what I got from that entire scene was she's heading up the Avengers. She's still trying to do the right thing, organize, fight crime, keep the planet safe. And she even tries to figure out an earthquake under the sea. And Okoye's like, it's an earthquake. We
we
can't we
can't do
can't
anything.
stop
Yeah,
everything. Yeah.
calm
And
down.
so
Yeah,
and her appearance is, she's not worried about that, as opposed to in all the other movies, everything is so put together. She's a spy, she has to fit a certain role. And this one,
yeah.
she's like, no, I'm just trying to protect the planet. That's number one goal, and that's my only goal.
She's looking to do something to be productive or at least try and do something for the planet, and this is the only thing she can think to do, and
Yep.
she's taking it way too seriously probably, um, in the sense that yeah, we will protect the world, but calm down, it's an earthquake.
Yeah.
BTW, I've heard some rumblings, earthquake in the ocean. Are we talking about Namor?
I saw that once. I think it's a stretch. I think it's a stretch.
I'm just saying, what if
If you would have
Namor?
said earthquake in the ocean leads to tsunaami, which could lead to badly designed nuclear power plant accident, then okay, then maybe Black Widow, you got a point. But
But I'm just saying,
uh,
it might be if Black Panther 2 comes out and the bad guy is Namor.
I
Think
mean,
about this earthquake.
sure, I'm sure everyone. Yeah, see, we knew it. If it was so he had kind of the shared copyright with Hulk, right? Universal still has part of him.
That
I think.
is Universal or Paramount, or are they the same company?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I can't remember. But
But
yeah, I
they
think
could probably work it out. That's not very important.
his is one of the rights that is a little more complicated. But I also feel like he's also one of the characters that they won't care about. Like when
Yeah,
Marvel got the Daredevil license back real quietly, like
yeah,
because they're like, we did that one Ben Affleck and it bombed, so we don't care. Sure, Marvel, have Daredevil back.
yeah.
Um, but I've heard some rumblings about that, and I think that could make sense for a potential because he's been good and bad for a long time. By the way, listeners, if you don't know who Namor is, he's essentially a broodier, more attitude version of Aquaman. Is that a
I
decent?
think that's fair. Yeah, he's an anti-hero, whereas Aquaman is pretty much
Oh,
all
he's a
hero all the
hero.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be fun to see. But yeah, I like your description of kind of where Romanoff is right now. Of course, what spurns the next part of her story? She's looking for a purpose. She's looking for a way to help, and in walks Ant-Man. And I want to highlight right now because we're gonna keep I'm gonna keep bringing up Paul Rudd's performance in this movie, or at least Ant-Man's kind of like his service for this movie as
Yeah.
just like the knife point comedy, just everywhere, just like a
Right.
little snippet. Yeah, just a little snippet. Um, he's great in this movie. I'm going to keep mentioning bits about him as we progress through, but God, Ant-Man was just really good in this movie, at least for me. So Ant-Man says, "Hey, I was in the quantum realm. It was only for 5 hours. What happened? Holy crap! Maybe I have a solution." So
Yeah.
that's where Romanoff's kind of motivation starts. We have a possibility. There's a
Well,
possibility
how
we
did he get out
can.
of the quantum realm? A rat
Yeah, a rat.
flipped the
A rat
switch.
saved the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
MVP, the rat. It is funny that's like people discussing how's
He's
Scott
gonna
gonna
get
get out
out.
of the quantum realm? Is
Yeah.
it gonna be something? And it's like, no, a rat. Just hit the button and
Yeah. Classic Ninja Turtle type thing. But yeah.
and maybe the rat's name was Splinter. We don't know. So that gives Romanoff now uh, motivation, and she's very much pro. Let's try this.
Right.
I think this was actually in the beginning part of the movie before Thanos gets killed. Where their plan was, let's go get the stones from Thanos, and we'll snap everyone back. That's their plan, right? And she kind of has that thing. It's like we owe it to everyone not in this room to give us a shot. And I feel like that's a
Right.
good summary of her character arc through the rest of this movie. That's very
So
much what her mindset is.
I guess I hadn't thought about this before, but really everybody's on board except for one person, Tony, and really he has the most to lose.
Right.
Everybody
Yeah.
else is, it's been 5 years, planets in a shitty way, and what this can't get worse except for
Right.
him.
Yeah. That's a good point. We could definitely talk about Tony some more as we go on. So Romanoff, we have this plan. We're going to fast forward because uh, she has a great line in this part wherever Paul or Scott is kind of like, "Hey, have you guys studied quantum physics?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, just for conversation." Like, just
Right.
a quick she's been so kind of distraught, but leading up to this that she has that quick humor snap back on kind of cockiness or smart ass that she's been in the rest of the movies. So that was kind of an interesting take. I will say that also I want to highlight Scarlett Johansson's performance whenever Cap shows up to this base and he's like, "Hey," what his line was like, "I'd make you some food, but I don't want to make you more depressed," like because he's
Yeah.
apparently not a good cook. But that whole her performance in that scene of just being broken and trying to do something, that's like she can't let this go. And even Cap says it like they can move on, but we can't move on.
Yeah.
I just want to highlight that performance. Like that's where she's at right now. But now we have hope, right? Hope is introduced in the form of the charming Paul Rudd. So we go through some shenanigans, and she is helping out with all the time travel setup, and I'm kind of blazing through. Everyone has hope. She smiles for the first time when they're about to go into the quantum realm, right? They're all in that
Okay.
circle, and she's like, see you, or like, see you tomorrow, or see you in a few minutes. And she
Yeah.
smiles. And I'm like, okay, this is the purpose is there now. She has something to fight for. She's
Right.
ready to go. I'm going to rewind because I already forgot. They do assemble a team, and of course, we reintroduce the other character we wanted to focus on for this little chunk, Hawkeye. So
Right.
Hawkeye, it's
Well,
been fun.
so even before then, I think before Ant-Man shows up, they kind of mention like, what is Clint doing? Like, you've been tracking him. He's like, she's like, I can't do it. He needs to just work things out for more than 5 years, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm sure she learns that his family's gone. Uh, Hawkeye has made the full transformation into the comic book character Ronin. I don't think they ever mentioned that name in particular, but it's very much the character who in the comics that he becomes, right? Like everyone knows that.
Yes, he
The
has a
mohawk,
Ronin a tattoo. Yeah.
yeah, the Ronin tattoo, the hood, the samurai sword. So we learn that essentially from Rhodey during his conversation when he's just killing people, and that's what he's been doing for probably 5 years, maybe 4. Like he had to. I mean, there's probably some like a year of like, oh shit, born, and then kill murder. But we pick up with him in probably the first fight scene of the movie in Japan, I believe, and he's just murdering some yakuza, like some gangsters, some yakuzas, I'm assuming. And it's a great little fight scene. It's very tight, right? We're focusing on the fighting. It's not zoomed out as most of MCU fights are with all the fantastical, crazy stuff. And we get some great lines in here that I wanted to highlight. The guy's like, "Why are you doing this?" And he's like, "Thanos took half the world. Thanos took half the people that died. You get me. Like I'm here for you. The world, like Thanos took my family, who didn't deserve to die. Your punk ass is still alive, and I'm here to right that wrong." That's kind of where his mind's at. Did you like that? Did you like where Hawkeye kind of picks up right here?
I did. I thought it was an interesting way to take his character. He just wants vengeance on something. He wants to make himself useful. It's good with the comics. I didn't like that line delivery there, and I don't know if I was overly impressed with that fight scene as opposed to all the stuff we've seen before. And I
Right.
think I just like Hawkeye so much because of his archery and all the stuff he can do with that. So to just see him sorting it up with somebody, I was like, man. But I think where they took his character and how just broken he was, I thought that was great.
Yeah. I mean, he's throwing shit, right? Like he threw some
Yeah,
stuff. He's still
yeah,
aiming. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so we find, and then in this scene, uh, we hear the rain. He just killed the last dude, and then we get a great sound effect of the rain is hitting the ground, but then we start to hear the rain hit the umbrella. Under the umbrella is Romanov. She finally went to go find him,
Uh,
and we get another great scene between these two for both these characters' story arcs for this movie, where he's like, "You're not. Why are you here? You shouldn't be here." And she's like, "It's Clint. I think I found a way. I think I found a way to give it back." And Jeremy Renner has this most anguished face and turns around and is like, "Don't do that. Don't give
yeah,
me hope." Like, feel it. I felt it. I don't know if you felt it, but I felt it. I was like, "Damn, I get you, Clint. I get you right
yeah. I
now."
mean, every ounce of hope is gone. It's been five
Yeah,
years. Yeah,
yeah. And she's like, "I'm sorry I couldn't give hope to you sooner, or I'm sorry I couldn't give it to you sooner." And she realizes she messed up too. She probably should have had this conversation before his body count racked up as high as it did.
but I
um,
also feel like when I remember how I felt in that moment, I was like, okay, are they a little too confident right now? But then you think about it some more, and it's like they were just grasping at anything. Is there some 0.001% chance that we could get
right,
them back? And
right.
that's what this provided at that moment.
Yeah. And I think that was probably a tough sell for Clint, who has so far gone at this point. He doesn't even want hope that he could find his family again. But I guess once Romanoff is probably the only person that could have showed up in that moment because of how tied together their stories are throughout
Right.
the MCU. That could have convinced him to come back. Like, can you imagine? I mean, Cap could have probably kicked his ass and then brought him back, but he probably I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like Captain America used up his Hawkeye, whatever in Civil War. So it
Yeah,
had to be her. I mean,
yeah,
we
that's
are
true.
introduced to them almost at the same. Well, she's introduced in Iron Man 2, and then he's introduced in Avengers.
Thor.
All they do is,
He
oh,
was in
that
Thor.
doesn't count. That doesn't count.
He was in it.
And
He had
eh,
the choice of the sniper rifle or the
okay,
bow and
okay,
arrow, and he went for the
I'll
bow and
keep the
arrow.
bow. So, but I mean, throughout all the movies, they reference their history together, and they be bringing up Budapest and all this stuff. So I think it had to be her. They have that special connection,
Yeah.
and
And
she
so,
knew the kids
yeah.
and Ultron. Yeah.
I mean, the son was supposed to be a daughter named after her, Natalie, but
Right,
it ended up being Nathan or Nathaniel. I think
Nathaniel.
it's Nathaniel. Yeah. Uh, so there's a very tight connection, and it's tough to think that in 5 years they haven't talked. But you imagine how this decimation affected them. It kind of makes sense. Like he's off doing his thing. I'm gonna let him do his thing. Like,
Right.
what can I say, even as your friend, after your whole
Uh,
family's died, right? Like,
Yep.
um,
Especially, and there's probably all the Avengers that are left alive feel guilt. Like Clint says, I'm going to be at home with my family. You guys are more than capable of protecting the Earth,
right.
and then they don't. So
Yeah.
there's got to be
Like,
tons of
what could
guilt.
I have done? Maybe that's probably weighing on him too. Could he have helped? Could he have shot the arrow that ended it all? Who knows? We'll never know. Um, and so they go back into time travel. Like I said, Romanoff smiles. Before that, a key character point for Hawkeye is that they're about to do a test run. Ant-Man's kind of nervous. He doesn't really want to do this. And they're like, I don't know if I want to do this. And then Clint's in the back, like, I'll do it. And we get that great tattoo, that Ronin
Yeah.
tattoo that you were talking about. Because he's like, look, fuck it, I don't have anything to lose.
Right.
I died time traveling, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here for the hope, but I'm not totally convinced of the hope. So if I die right now, it's cool. I don't have to worry about killing
Yeah.
villains anymore. He goes back in time for the test run. He goes back to his farm. It's back to normal, or at least normal looking. He gets that glove, that mitt, that baseball mitt, and he hears his family in the house.
Right.
And he's about to go like reach out to them and be like, "Oh my God, you're alive!" And then they pull him back out. And so he comes back with the mitt and it's like,
I'm like, no, don't affect the timeline. Don't talk to him.
"It's broken. Biff's gonna take over the future."
Yeah.
So he has the glove, and I forgot. I mean, I missed that the first time, and the second time I watched it, he brought the glove back with him, and
Okay.
I don't even know if he ever says like it worked. I think his just facial expression plus the glove was like, I think it worked, right? Like, I don't know if he flat out said it worked and got super hyped or whatever, but I just want to highlight that for like his willing to sacrifice for that moment.
Yeah.
It's real quick, but I feel like it's worth mentioning. So we go back in time. I will say there was a good. I'm gonna keep bringing Paul Rudd whenever I can. Whenever he's like, we only have pin particles for all of us went back and there and back
Yeah, dude.
2 test runs.
Blows
So
one.
be careful. Yeah, he just blows one test run. So we go back in time. Our particular duo, who we're talking about right now, are tasked with the Soul Stone. We do have some exposition that they were a part of, and Romanoff is very much. She's taking her leadership position seriously whenever they're discussing where are we going to go for the stones. She's the one that has the epiphany that there's 3 souls, Infinity Stones in New York.
She's heading this up as far as the strategy and when they're going to get the stones.
Yeah. So she's all back. She's found something to do. She's very much gung ho about this. Falcon's in the back, kind of giving his input occasionally. Like so we're gonna have
Falcon's not around.
Or sorry, Hawkeye.
Okay.
He's like
Bird related.
So we're gonna have to pick our targets. Like that's like the one line he kind of gives for that moment. That's fine. So we get our strategy. We know where we need to go to get the stones. We're gonna follow the group that went to Morag for the Power Stone, but we're gonna drop off of them real quick, and we're gonna follow the group that went to Vormir to get the Soul Stone.
So yeah, I'm not. Did you understand the purpose of that on the second viewing? Like, why didn't they just go by themselves?
You're right. It is probably you probably could have just went straight to Vormir.
Yeah.
The only thing that I could say is that whenever they describe what Vormir is, which is another great Paul Rudd, Scott Glenn line, is they ask what Vormir is, and then we get Nebula talking about it's this spiritual place of death, and like it's not just a planet, right? It's like this place, like a temple, a mystical place. So maybe they don't know if they can quantum realm leap to Vormir straight. Maybe you have to drive a certain vector through the atmosphere.
So maybe there's could have used a little more explanation on that, but
yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. Like, but you're right, they could have just went straight to Vormir, because all that really happens is that they Rocket tells Hawkeye that, don't break my ship, bring it back. It's a little small ship now. Put it in his pocket so they can use it when they get to Morag.
Right.
They get to Morag. He's like, I'll promise, I won't break it. He's like, that's as promises goes. That wasn't good. Just Rocket giving it a little quip. So we get to Morag. They split up. The group we're going to leave is Nebula and Rhodey, and maybe we'll talk about them in an episode. Maybe not. I do want to talk about
Not
Nebula.
the original.
Yeah. I do want to talk about Nebula at some point. But we follow Hawkeye and Scarlet. Not Scarlet Witch.
It's I know. Her real name's Scarlet. It's confusing to me too. Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff.
Black Widow. Yeah. Black Widow, who's played by Scarlett Johansson, who's not Scarlet Witch. That's Elizabeth Olsen. All right. So, Natasha Romanoff, Clint Barton are off to Vormir. And I don't know how you felt when I saw that they're going to Vormir, but I knew what was going to happen. Or at least I knew what they were going to come and run into.
Yeah, I think from watching Infinity War, and I think at that time you're not sure what's going to happen. But after watching that, one of them, he killed Gamora. Like, yeah, there's no way they can get, one of them has to die.
Right. The only good news is that they love each other, right? Because if it was people who didn't love each other.
Yes. So I was questioning like that. Is this love going to work? But yeah, it has to work.
Yeah, it has to work. They have a love that you can tell stretches for a long time. I mean, like, Romanoff's the only person that knows where Hawkeye's family was, and he kept that a secret from most of the Avengers. So I believed it. But it's just kind of funny to think about, like, so what if Nebula and who else would have been the Hulk went to Vormir?
Right. It wouldn't have worked.
Would Red Skull just be like, nah, just go ahead and try.
Yeah. Maybe some convenient writing there, but
good for me.
I think it was fine.
It ends up being one of the more powerful scenes emotionally that we lead. We get that great line that you mentioned. This isn't like Budapest because Hawkeye's flying in space. That's cool. I'm sure he was nerding out about that because he's a pilot.
Yep.
He's probably like, oh, yeah.
He was excited, yep.
They land. He has a great line. He's like, this would be really cool if it wasn't, at the end of the world kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's a cool looking planet. Get a great line from Romanoff as they climb up the hill. I bet the raccoon didn't have to climb a mountain. Great stuff.
So that always, that kind of not irked me, but just kind of intrigued me. Even in Infinity War, they land and it's like, they have to go up this mountain. Like, guys, why didn't we just fly up the mountain?
Dude, if you ask questions like that, then why were the Lord of the Rings movie ever made? Right? Like,
yeah, sure.
Why didn't they just call the Hawks in from the beginning? It's like, because then I wouldn't have a book to write. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's a little bit smaller.
He said, what, fly, you fools, but they didn't get it. Okay.
Yeah. No, it was their fault, not his.
Yeah.
He tried. I tried to tell you about Eagle Express, and you guys just didn't pay attention to me. So they're up the hill, and it's all the tension's building in me. I don't know how it was for you, but like, it's coming, right? We know that
I didn't know what to feel.
Right. I knew someone's not coming back, and I was like, who's it gonna be? How is this gonna get decided? And when I was watching the scene, but leading up to it, I don't know how you felt. Did you have a definitive answer? Like, did you?
I think I had like a little bit of hope in there from all the sci-fi and fantasy stuff I've watched, that because they both loved each other, maybe there was a way out. As opposed to when Gamora and Thanos went, she didn't love him.
Yeah.
So he had to lose something he loved.
Right.
So there was like something. I was like, well, maybe there's a loophole. They can still get it, and they can both survive. So I wasn't sure yet.
Yeah. So we get to there. Red Skull. Of course, awesome nod from Infinity War. Kept seeing him. That was a great reveal that I got and you got, but I'm not sure if everyone got. But I was like, oh shit, Red Skull's here. So he lays out the rules. It's a soul stone, stole for a stole. You have to sacrifice the thing you love to get this stone. We cut back. The movie goes somewhere else. It cuts back. We get them. They're having a great scene where they're just kind of like, well, this sucks, right? Like,
yeah.
And he's like waves at Red Skull. Like Hawkeye's just like, I don't know if you saw it. He's just like, they're over here, and he's just like, what's up? It's just kind of like talking shit. Red Skull's just like, this is my life now. I don't have to.
Yeah.
And
would have been interesting if Cap had to go to Vormir.
It's interesting to think about, right? I did hear somewhere that once the Soul Stone's taken, then he's not cursed or he's not obligated to be there anymore. So maybe we don't get that meeting. But
Huh.
it is funny when they go back, like we're about to discuss later, when he goes back, if he was like, yeah, why don't you go talk to the red guy? And then Cap was like, wait, red guy? I know a red guy. What kind of
Yeah.
red guy are we talking about?
Not sure that conversation went that way, but
um, so we get a great scene where they kind of say, well, I guess we both know who has to die. Well, that's not what they say, but they're like, I guess we know what has to happen.
yeah.
And I was like, oh God, I don't know if they know if they are on the same page with this. And then Hawkeye gets like, says what I was thinking. I don't know if we're talking about the same person right now. And then they get into arguing. No, Hawkeye's like, I have nothing left. I have no one here. It should be me. Like he's kind of sacrificed himself, and we get a motivation for Romanoff. Like, no, since this has happened, since I've gotten this family, and since the events of decimation, I've tried, or I've been trying to do something, and this is my shot. This is what I was meant to do.
Yeah.
And then we get a great back and forth because Hawkeye's shady as hell. He's like, fine, you're right. It should definitely be you. And then just fucking hip tosses her ass and then tries to go. And she shocks him to the ground. He shoots a bow and arrow on the ground. And it's just a back and forth of them both trying to run to kill themselves first so that the other person doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
thought that
perfect
was
writing.
great.
Yeah.
That scene was good. You could feel they both loved each other. And much better than the Japanese scene for me.
Yeah. So the way it ends is that Hawkeye jumps off, but Romanoff is ballsy as hell and jumps and grabs him, puts that little awesome grappling hook she has. She's used multiple times throughout the movies. Hooks it to his belt, and shoots it at the wall. He grabs her, and she's like, "Let me go." And he's like, it's real pissed at her, like that the familial, like, he's like, I can't believe he did that. Like he looks at the thing on his belt and he's like, you son of a bitch. Like, like real quick, kind of like maybe playful anger, but not like real sad at this point. Cause it doesn't hit home.
Hasn't set in yet.
Yeah. It doesn't hit home until she's kind of like, it's okay. And we get a great scene of Jeremy Renner being like, please. That's the only word he says is please don't make me do this. And she kind of doesn't. And because she ends up just pushing herself off the wall, and so he can't hold on to her, right? It wasn't him letting her go; it was her doing this, and she falls in the same motion as Gamora. I thought it was fine. Some people don't like that, a little too on the nose. I thought it was just
I never really looked into it. I was like, that's just how you fall off of a big cliff. I didn't really even think about it.
It's the same. Like it's like the same layout. Like if they did the white chalk, and then they left it for Scarlet Witch, and then in the future Gamora fell, it would be the same thing. But I digress. And Clint wakes up in the ocean just like Thanos and has the Soul Stone and immediately breaks down, like we all would. And he goes back in time. We meet up with everyone else, and he just falls to his knees and has this face of just utter broken.
Yep.
And everyone's all happy. We did it. We got all the stones. And everyone looks at Clint and
Hulk, I think Hulk notices first. Where's Nat? And
then everyone else doesn't need to talk after that, right? Like just his face, just seeing he's not there. We know what happens. We get that great scene where the main cast starts talking about how we're going to get her back. Thor's like, we can get her back. We have the stones. Clint's kind of like, no, we can't. It's permanent. We can't bring her back. And then Hulk's like, we can't bring her back. And Thor's like, yes, we can. He's like, well, I don't know. Why don't you go talk to the red guy? Because that's what he said. And I liked that delivery from Jeremy, where he's just frustrated. He's like, she can't get brought back. Like, that's how this worked. We couldn't get it without her dying. So even if our plan works, we get all the stones, we wish everyone back, and then we take the stones back, it's not like we're going to get her back, right? Like it's a permanent sacrifice to get the soul stone. It's part of the rules, or at least whatever weird rules these have. So that affected, like you said, the Hulk pretty bad, but it definitely affected Clint. They put the gauntlet on Hulk. He does the snappy snaps, and we get a great action set piece, which is probably the third act of this movie. It's just this whole awesome action scene. And Hawkeye's job is he's the one who has the gauntlet once the building collapses and he's running with the gauntlet.
He's playing keep away.
Yeah.
Which oddly reminded me of that NFL 100 commercial where they're all at the big dinner and they're just running with the football. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the whole scene. It's more badass in this one, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, a little.
We get some great scenes of um, him fighting all these monsters. I think it's the monsters from Infinity War, the four-legged beasts that
Yeah, that's what
attack
I
Wakanda.
assume. Yep.
Um, he has a great moment where he's not sure what's happening, but he shoots that light arrow down the tunnel, and it's just infected with those
Yep.
things. And he's like, "Shit!" And then he's great. He's running. He's throwing arrows behind him and blowing them up. He gets to the tunnel, shoots himself up, starts taking his samurai sword and killing them, and he survives. Like he thinks he has another one left, and then he's like, "Oh shit!" Uh, and then he gets betrayed by past Nebula,
Yes.
and we have a standoff there. But essentially, the rest of his job is essentially getting the gauntlet to wherever it needs to be. He's just hiding it. He's playing keep away. It ends up getting picked up by Black Panther. And the rest of this fight scene, I'm never going to fully download what happens in this amazing fight scene that we'll talk about
I'm
later.
sure you will.
I'm sure
Maybe on 15th viewing.
I'm sure he's doing some stuff in the background, right? Like there might, if we have that big view, he's probably shooting some dude in the face in the back.
Yeah.
I heard Howard the Duck was in there.
I
I need to
did
watch
see
that.
a screenshot of that. Yep.
Yeah, so I need.
He's
There's
with
so much.
the Ravagers.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on in this scene, but a lot of the story development kind of stops and stalls for Hawkeye in the scene.
Yep.
We meet back up with him after the events of everything's over, and he has a great scene with Scarlet Witch, and he's like, the funeral. Spoilers again. The funeral for Tony's happening, and he's like, I wish she could know that we did it. And Scarlet Witch, of course, has lost vision, and she's like, she knows. They both know, right? So he gets his little moment. It closes out with that montage at the end where his family's back. He meets his family, flies in. They're having a good time. When we get the montage of all the families, he's having a good time with his family. His family was at the funeral as well, and that's kind of where his story ends for now. We know his story is going to get picked up most likely with the Disney Plus series.
Right.
And imagine it's probably raising or the new Hawkeye, whoever's going to take over for him.
Right.
Potentially Kate Bishop. That would make sense. What do you think about his arc? Did you like his overall arc in this story?
I think
20.
both of them, like I said, I think they're intertwined from the beginning. They're both kind of evenly matched with different skill sets. So I think it was perfect that they were meshed in this movie, as they have been in all the other movies. They even face off in Civil War, and they don't want to really hurt each other. I thought that was kind of different from the other battles. I like it so he does fight Black Panther for a second in Civil War. He says, "Hey, I'm Clint." He's like, "I don't care."
Yeah, it was a good scene.
And then in this movie, Black Panther says, "Clint, give me the gauntlet."
So he remembers his name.
Yeah, I thought that was nice.
It's a neat touch. There's in that battle scene. There's a lot of fan servicey little things to notice. For our particular characters, not so much the ones we decided to focus on initially. Right. Romanoff, of course, she's dead. For all intents and purposes, I don't think she's coming back. She does have her own movie led up by her. There is going to be a Black Widow movie. You imagine it's
got to be a prequel,
right? I
wonder if they can mesh in Hawkeye there in a way like maybe they did Hulk with Ragnarok.
Right.
Like maybe he's the one that pulls her out of her Russian roots, or maybe he's part of that process, or maybe there's some Budapest scenes.
That would be Budapest. What if it is
all this Budapest about?
What if it is that, right? What if it is him getting her out, and then we get Budapest as the climax of the movie?
Yeah, I'd be good with
she's
that.
She's very much the lead, but he's also there. That's the negative part is like she's supposed to be the lead, right? So do we want Hawkeye to be involved in?
That's why I said it has to be like a Hulk in Ragnarok type thing, where it's obviously Thor's movie, or it's obviously Black Widow's movie, but I mean these characters, they're intertwined, and they're a part of each other's. Yeah.
He'll at least show up, right? Like at the end or maybe the beginning. Like he'll probably be there. That's in some capacity. I do like the trade-off between these two characters because you remember a large theme of Black Widow's from the original Avengers was that she has red in her ledger. That was a theme that she kept bringing back up. And it's interesting that those roles swapped in this movie. Clint had done some bad shit. maybe they deserved it, but he's getting a lot of red in his ledger. So those roles switched in this movie.
Right.
And like you said, I think them being tied together was perfect. I think that's the best way to handle it. Uh, I think it's probably the best ending for both.
Yeah,
Uh,
you can't. I mean, thinking about it, if they would have killed Hawkeye, that would have been way too much. Like to see his family come back, and then
just have
they're
Natalie
just
walk up,
devastated. Just
real
more
sad.
devastation. Yeah,
Yeah,
devastation on top of devastation.
yeah. You understand why Clint wants to do it, but you also understand why Nat wants to do it from just her motivations to this movie of wanting to do something to for the world, but also because it's Clint. You have a family, dude. Like,
Right.
shut up. I'm doing this, right?
Yep.
Uh, but that was a good little roundup for those two. I think we're going to take a little break before we come back and talk about our next character. And depending on how that long that lasts, maybe we will call it a day, depending on how long you got.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, part one, Dunzo. All right, we're fading into black. Be quiet, big clap. And welcome back to the second part of our first episode, which we've agreed upon is going to be episode one of two, maybe three, depending on how we
Oh
feel.
man.
Depending on how much free time we got. So we just talked about uh, Clint and Natasha. Now we're going to do another double feature. We're going to go with Hulk and Thor. Uh, Real quick, top. I know you're a big fan of Hulk. I don't know how you feel about Thor. What did you think about their particular arcs in this part in this movie?
So I think I mentioned it when we first started out. To me, the only really popular characters when they started the MCU, Hulk and Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hulk, they were able to sell those guys to other studios because they are very marketable. And Hulk had already had a movie, had a very successful TV show, cartoon. Um, love Hulk. I think it's very compelling. The whole Jekyll Hyde. He's a scientist. He's frail, and then he turns into this huge monster who is still benevolent at the end of the day. So love Hulk. We start out with him, and it's pretty crazy. And I think I had heard mentions that they wanted to kind of do this to him in Infinity War, is when he becomes the Professor Hulk, where he still has the personality of Bruce Banner, but
That would have been
he has
hard.
most of the strength
That would have been hard to put in
of
that
Hulk.
movie.
Yeah, it's already what is Infinity War 2.5. So
Even from a time standpoint, that movie is very much like, hey, everyone's losing, and then to
yeah,
have Hulk get a win
that
at the end.
exactly what the writer said. It was too much of a upbeat high part of the movie where it's kind of that whole Infinity War is all about stakes and the world's caving in.
Right.
So I love and so when we see him, did you get a feel that he was kind of still being a superhero or more of a just celebrity type?
Well, he's definitely, at least seemingly, not helping out with
An
Natasha's
Avenger? Yeah, he's not part of the Avengers yet,
Avengers Light,
right?
Avengers 2.0. I don't know. He mentions that. So, for real quick, for fans, Professor Hulk. I think you're more of a Hulk fan than I am, but from my understanding of Hulk, is there's been multiple versions of him with varying levels of Bruce Banner controlling and the monster controlling. But
Sure.
the way the scale works mostly is that if it's more Bruce Banner, he's weaker, and if he's full Hulk monster, then that's where he's the strongest, right?
Yep.
So while you get control, you lose some of that power, and that's
Right.
kind of the sacrifice. But in the way we get introduced to him is that essentially he had two arcs before this movie in Thor Ragnarok and in Infinity War, where in Ragnarok he was Hulk for a year, more maybe longer, and that
Yeah.
scares Bruce because he's like, I was out of control for that long,
Right.
but by him being Hulk for that long, we get the most words and verbiage out of Hulk in Thor
Right.
Ragnarok up until that point. So maybe they're kind of adapting together, like
Yeah, you
he's able.
think that way, and he's able to call upon him later in the final battle of Infinity War, or in the
Yeah,
final battle of Ragnarok, and then he's able to fight Thanos at the beginning of Infinity War too. So
that's exactly.
they do have a better working relationship, I think,
Yeah,
in that small time frame.
yeah, and you think in Thor Ragnarok at least that Banner is a little bit scared and is scared to let control go because he just lost a year, right? Like
Yep.
that's scary, and he in fact tries to turn into Hulk for the end fight sequence in Thor Ragnarok, but it doesn't work. Remember, he falls and hits the ground and doesn't
Yes.
actually
Yeah.
transform.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like maybe they're not as cohesive as they could be.
That's a
And
good
then
point.
we get the Hulk scene in Infinity War where he has a fight with Thanos, and Thanos just hands him his ass. Like, just
Yeah. Yeah.
he's. To be
That
fair,
was
he does.
tough.
Yeah, he does kind of like come on real strong, but what you see is that Thanos is just as powerful, if not more powerful,
Yeah. That
and
was a perfect
can
setup for the movie, just to kind
can
of
be
lay it out
strategic.
on the table. Lay it
Yeah,
on the
he can
table.
be.
This is how bad this evil villain is. Yeah.
Yeah, if you and that's kind of like what we lead ends up with being with when we get Professor Hulk is that we have a rage monster who is out of control, who gets beat by a more strategic fighter who's quick and just pegs him apart, right? Like, and he tosses him to the ground. So it makes sense that his to finish his arc from these three movies. So he found a balance. He said he was in the Gamma lab for 18 months, and he figured out like maybe the Hulk isn't the disease, it's the cure. So
Yeah.
they've gotten to this weird yin, not weird, but this yin yang kind of zen place
Mhm.
where Banner is Hulk. He is a big dude, not as big as we've seen him,
Yeah.
but he also has all of Bruce Banner's traits and
Intelligence.
mannerisms. So it is pretty much Bruce that's just been slightly hulked out, or not slightly,
Right.
quite hulked
Yeah,
out.
I think in one word, he's at peace. He's found peace with who he is and with the Hulk, and that's in complete contrast to most everybody else, except for I guess you could argue Tony. But I think the difference is Hulk hasn't lost sight of, or Banner hasn't lost sight of who he is. He still wants to be a hero. He still wants to help, and they didn't
Yeah,
really have to do much convincing with him,
yeah,
other than the science part of it.
yeah. He
Um,
was in. He was in. Yeah, let's
yeah,
do this. Let's go help people. So he we get introduced to him because Tony says no to the time heist. Great name, by the way. Um,
yeah,
I love that part. I was like, time heist. I'm in. This movie is
yeah.
about a
That's
time heist.
throwback to Ant-Man's criminal days. Yep,
Yeah, it's another heist. Ant Man
yep.
and the heist. Let's do this. Uh, so Tony, they struck out with that brain. They're like, we need another big brain. Um, who has a big brain? Bruce Banner. He's a big brain.
Right.
And so we meet him having the biggest Grand Slam meal I think I've ever seen in my life. Just
Yeah.
a salad bowl of eggs. Like,
I do like that whenever they deal with either huge characters or in the comic book world or characters that have super fast metabolisms because of all the energy they're expending and they have to eat so much. I do like that.
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like
Yeah.
he has to eat a lot. He's burning gamma radiation off everywhere.
Yeah.
We meet a like you said a Hulk who's in peace. We meet a Hulk who's taking pictures with the kids. Uh, what is it called, small person or something like that? Yeah, sure, small person. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he does a dab that happens in this movie. Hulk
Mhm.
does a dab. Um, we get a great scene with him and Paul Rudd. Like I said, I'm just gonna keep mentioning Paul Rudd in this movie. Scott has to take the picture, and he's like, "Hey, you want a picture with me?" And they're like, and the Hulk's like, kind of feels bad, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll take a picture with you. And then
So
one
I
kid,
think it's interesting to note, yeah, there's been a 5 year time jump. So dabs probably aren't culturally relevant at that time, but it still works as Banner is kind of,
a nerd,
goofy old
he's
man. Yeah.
a goofball. Maybe social memes have traveled slower after half the
Possibly with half the
population's dead.
population. Okay.
Yeah, all the creative people died who
I'll
can't
take
think
that.
of new
Yep.
things. Um, and we get that great scene where like kids are like, I don't really want to go, and Hulk's like, yeah, just take the picture, it'll be fine. And Paul and Scott's like, no, that's fine. They're Hulk fans. They're not Ant-Man fans. It's fine. I've been gone for 5 years, and it goes on for quite a long time. This bit,
Yeah.
but I was eating it up. Like I'm for it, and it ends at such a punctuation point where Ant-Man's just like, take the goddamn phone, and just hits it to the kid. The whole time, like Romanoff and Cap are just kind of like sitting back, just enjoying themselves with this little awkwardness. They're just like,
Right.
and it's weird that Hulk's getting this much popularity, but Cap isn't. Um, maybe Cap isn't about those pictures. He won't dab. We already know that, right? Like,
It is kind of left you to wonder what's Cap's involvement been in the Avengers in the 5 year gap.
and we'll talk about that probably next episode. But
Yeah.
that's a good point. Like, what? Why isn't he getting his dab on? Right? Like,
Yeah.
uh, Why is
And I
he
mean,
been?
honestly, he just looks like a in shape white guy, whereas you've got 7 foot tall green guy
Yeah,
next to him. So yeah,
I mean, it's hard to hide America's ass, Jordan. It's hard to hide it.
it was even in a booth sitting down. I don't know.
So they asked Banner like, "Hey, time travel. We're gonna do this time heist. Let's help us out." And Banner's like, "This is not really my area of expertise," which is a good point, right? Like,
Yeah,
he knows stuff, but like time travel's like
yeah,
they don't have that elective in college, right?
that's
We didn't
true.
get to pick up physics time travel when we were in school. So go back to the lab where we're trying to do this experiment, and I love the Professor Hulk gives Mark Ruffalo a chance to just be fully Bruce Banner Hulk, right? Like he's able to act it all out and not be more pure animalistic. He's always done the motion capture, right? But I
Yeah,
feel like this was a good place to end where it's like he can just be himself and really show us emotion that's kind of tough when you're an animal rage monster.
yeah,
Uh, and I think he delivered. Like I think Ruffalo's performance in this movie was great for the Hulk.
right. No, I mean, ever since it was a big change for me from Ed Norton to Ruffalo, but I think Ruffalo has embodied his version of the character, and I think it's been pretty consistent.
Yeah. So here's the experiment. We're gonna try and send Scott into the quantum realm to do this time travel business. Hulk is like has a aura of confidence, but has no idea what's going to happen. Like he admits it to Romanoff. He's like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah,
Of course, we get a great bit where Paul Rudd turns into uh, adolescent Paul Rudd, baby Paul Rudd, old man Paul Rudd, and pretty much we just know that Banner, as smart as he is, doesn't quite know how to do this time travel business.
yes,
It's a quick, funny moment. So the next big arc for Banner here, who's found his peace, but he is, like you said, wants to be a hero, wants to help. He does he has a good bit when Paul Rudd's taco gets blown out and he gives him two
yeah.
tacos. I like that one. That was a cool little bit. Um, Rhodey, watch out! There's an idiot in the landing zone. Just, and he's like, "What's up, regular size guy?"
Yeah,
just there's a lot of comedy in this movie that I appreciate. As sad and as many feelings as I felt in this movie, they still brought some humor that I
I
appreciated.
think that's something you can always count on the MCU to bring. I criticize it a lot because to me, I, it almost seems like the characters are losing sight of the stakes whenever they're joking around like that. Now, when it's at times like you just mentioned, not a big deal, but it's in the middle of a fight and any wrong move could be into the world. I don't want jokes about you got the wrong hammer or whatever. But that's just me personally, and that's why I don't. That's one of my criticisms of this.
So
I think it's a little too much humor.
do you hate Spider-Man?
So whenever I grew up watching Spider-Man, to me his humor was to get underneath the skin of the villain and to give him an edge.
I also think
So
he's hiding his own insecurities as well through humor.
yeah,
But yeah, that too. Like, because
yeah,
he's a scared kid, right? Like,
yeah,
but also to get under the skin.
right.
For instance, in Civil War, when he's talking shit to Falcon and Winter Soldier, and they're just like, "You don't usually talk. You're not supposed to talk while you're fighting."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he's just
yeah.
like,
That's
"I
me.
love that. Yeah,
I'm
that's awesome."
Falcon and Bucky. Yeah, don't talk. Let's just fight.
Oh my God, you have a metal arm? That's so
Yeah.
cool. um, so we also get a big point where he defines Hulk has become the exposition monster in this movie as far as the rules of time travel as we know it
Yes, yes.
in
Let's
the
do it.
MCU.
Let's get into it.
So we learned from Scott that time in the quantum realm doesn't quite work how our time works.
So he said he
Also,
was in there. Yeah, he was in there for 5 minutes, and it was 5 years
five
in the
hours.
real world.
It was
Okay.
5 hours. Yeah, still not. That's
Yeah,
dynamically different.
yeah, yeah.
They also, through the tests, know that they don't quite understand how the quantum realm works. They mention that it's chaos, right?
Yeah.
It's a chaotic place. How can we control this? Of course, we'll talk about it in the next episode. Tony kind of comes home with the
Eureka moment.
eureka
Like
moment.
normal. Yeah.
But the rules that we get here is also a great scene with Rhodey and Scott, where we have conversations like I imagine you and me and any of our friends having, where they're like bring up all the movies with time travel to be like kind of like give us evidence or whatever.
Yes,
And it's like, well, what about?
exactly.
I mean, they pretty much trashed Back to the Future throughout this movie, right? Like
Well,
they
I think well, let's go into that for a bit. So Back to the Future is like the baseline for time travel movies for our generation.
fair.
And I think it's because they do such a great job of explaining the rules and it's always brought up. He's got the picture with the vanishing photos. They explain the consequences. Hey, if you do this action in the past, this is how it affects the future. And then even into the second one, the third one, I don't think people are it's not as popular. But the second one, even with Biff's Hotel and how it changes with time travel, and I feel like almost every time travel movie after that follows that path and takes advantage of those rules they laid out, and they don't have
Right.
to explain as much. Like even with Butterfly Effect and all those movies.
With
So in
Looper,
this one,
with
like in
Looper,
Looper, yes,
where the dude gets his hands cut off in the past, and in the future they're
it
gone and
happens.
shit.
Yes.
Yeah,
So in this movie, when you change the rules, I feel like you have to spend as much time as Back to the Future explaining those things. And when Hulk says that those two sentences that I'm supposed to say, this is different. For me, that was like, okay, that was drinking from a fire hose. I have no idea what you just said. Like
so
he says like, oh, my past is not our past, but this future. And I'm like, wait, what?
so
Like, okay,
it is, we'll call it the Back to the Future concept, in that you can go back to the past to change and affect your future. That
yes,
is
yeah,
kind of the rule established in Back to the Future.
yeah,
A really top level version of what Hulk defines, plus Nebula, because Nebula apparently knows time travel too. She's a robot. She probably downloaded it.
yeah. That's fine.
uh,
Yeah, I'll go with it.
they both say that through this quantum realm, through Tony's GPS, we can go through the quantum realm chaos, and we can get from this point in the present and go to a point in the past. The goal being to get the stones which Thanos destroyed at the beginning of the movie.
Yes,
What they were saying, in my understanding, is that once you go back, you're so time is linear for you. It's a linear experience. You go
yep,
back in time, you affect the past, which was known as the past. But when you go back, the moment you go back, that is now your present. Your original
on
present
board.
is now your past. So if you mess with something in what is now your present, it's not going to affect future, because your future is your
Yeah,
past now, and it's going to
yeah,
create a new future, which is just a new timeline. That's how I understand it, a new reality, if you will.
yep,
So the minute you go back, the effect that you have on the space time is that you're creating a new reality.
yes. New timeline.
Right. So if you kill Thanos, doesn't matter. You saved it for them, but us back here, we're still fucked. Right?
Right.
Like that's kind of what they're describing in not so many words. And we get it throughout the movie, kind of further explained, like with the Ancient One and some other stuff. But that's kind
So
of
yeah, the ancient one I liked a little more. I guess a more visual person. So he
yeah,
goes in and she's like, "No, you're gonna mess up the timeline. When you move that stone, it's gonna create a new one." He's like, "No, we're gonna put it back, and that timeline
yeah,
disappears."
yeah.
And so I'm not on board with that, even with the rules they set up, because time doesn't stop. They didn't press pause in that timeline.
No,
So
yeah. So
so
like I think that what they were saying is that it splinters off. They come back and reintroduce the stone at the exact moment they took it, which is gonna be Cap, right? Which should be pretty fun, right? Like Hulk
yeah,
jumps away, and then Cap's just like, "Hey, here's it
yeah,
back. Thanks. See you later." Um, I guess it really depends. Like, is it the immediate removal of the stone from the reality enough to create an alternate reality splinter? Or is it the fact that she doesn't have it anymore and battles she did win in the original timeline that we understand, she loses now because she doesn't have the stone, and that's where the splinter happens?
I didn't think of it that way. I thought of it the first way. They removed it, and because that time is moving at normal pace, um, that's going to keep going. And even though he comes back and brings it, that's actually a third timeline.
Right. Which might be what happens. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I think what she was saying, it depends on how you read what she says. Because what she says is she does the lines really cool. And she's like, the stones allow for what you understand as the flow of time in a straight line. The minute you remove one, that's where the branch happens.
Yep.
So you could that's kind of that your original hypothesis. And mine's more like if she hadn't had to use the time stone in a while, right? Like the saving the universe, our reality from
Right.
Dormammu and shit wasn't that hard for the next couple years until Strange took over. Maybe being without the time stone for even a day wasn't that big of a deal because she didn't have to use it at any point.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's
it's
hard to define like what's a day though. If it's a day in the original timeline, is that equal a day in the unpaused timeline with the removed stone?
yeah. So and I love that this conversation's devolved into this, and like I've told you, is that talking about time travel is fun, but ultimately pointless because
Yeah.
it's a
And I
concept that's
think
not
my only grief with that is that they should have, for me, they should have spent more time trying to explain it. I know they spent some time on it with Hulk
yeah
in those two different instances, but for me, it was just like, well, this is a brand new concept. No movies do this, so I
yeah
need more time. But no, we don't have any more time. It's already a 3 hour
we
movie.
gotta go
So
we gotta go
yeah,
we gotta keep moving.
yeah,
Uh, I think that with the interesting thing about the rule, the fact that part of what the stones do is they create the time, the flow of time as we recognize it in a straight line. As we know in the events of Infinity War, we learned from the beginning of Endgame, rather, is that Thanos destroys all the stones because he knew that they could get them and bring everyone back and undo the work he did. So if the Ancient One is right, and if she wasn't being specific to the time stone, she meant all like any stone getting removed from this reality will do something or will have ramifications. That leads to our current present, as we know it from MCU,
yeah.
being kind
Being
of messed up, right? Like
correct. Yeah, I was
who
also
knows
thought of that. Yeah.
who knows how many timelines we got. And it also leads credence. I was reading a great Polygon article. I think I sent it to you. Maybe I sent it one to you. I don't remember. But it goes into like the title of the article is like time travel makes sense in MCU, and here's why. He kind of goes into this
Yeah.
long kind of explanation. Uh, he posited, I might look up the author right while I'm talking. He posited that because Dave Gonzalez from Polygon, that's the author, he posited that the fact that time got fucked up when Thanos destroyed all of them, that maybe that's the only reason why Tony was able to develop the GPS and the only reason they were able to go into the quantum zone or the quantum realm and travel through time was because of how fucked up shit was.
Huh.
And I was like, oh,
Okay.
okay, that's an interesting idea. Like, I don't know, but we don't know. Will never know unless they tell us.
But
Uh,
that does that work with the ending scene with Cap after all the stones are returned and he still travels back in time?
I think if we like the idea, like you were saying, that when you do something of major ramifications, it creates an alternate timeline,
Yeah.
then Cap can be explained. If that theory, if it only can be stones, if the only way you create alternate timelines is removal
Oh,
of stones,
because the original timeline doesn't have the stones. That's your point. So whenever
right?
he went back in, not back in time, whenever he moved to the original timeline again, that timeline is still
It
loosey
has
goosey because
linear,
there's no stones. Yeah.
yeah. So we don't know. So I don't know. I think,
Yeah.
like you said, they don't have too much time to explain it. I do think it is very much kind of a hole in the logic, but I think they explain enough to know that this is the goal, and they make it a key point that we cannot create paradoxes. We got to take the stones back to the exact point we took them, so that we don't do the shit we've been talking about. So we don't
Yeah.
have Biff in the hotel, right? Like what we're trying
Yeah.
to.
And the other interesting thing that Tony's real clear on because he's happy with his life now is he doesn't want to like reverse time so it never happened. He just wants to bring everybody back the way they were, but he doesn't want to change anything that happened in those 5 years. So I
Right.
thought
So that
that was a
everyone,
particular point. Yeah.
which leads to interesting
Which is
things we
very
can
like
talk about.
manifest. If I don't know if you've watched that TV show, it's
No.
where a plane disappeared. It was a pilot on NBC. It only lasted 1 year because okay, it wasn't very good. But the
Yeah.
concept is the same. There's a plane, it disappears, and it reappears 5 years later. So
Right.
like they land, and their spouses have moved on, their kids are grown up, and so this is all this stuff that the MCU can deal with in these next movies.
Exactly. Like it does lead to some interesting things, especially in July when Far From Home comes out. I think watching that trailer now with the context of Endgame makes that movie seem a lot more interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
As far as the ramifications, it does. It is convenient that his whole class got snapped, and he, not all of them,
Well,
but
his
like, but
friends,
yeah,
his friends that we know. Yeah.
and Flash, who's a dick.
And his friend of me, Flash.
um, so yeah, I think it's going to lead to some. It does leave you with questions, but I feel like those questions aren't annoying in the sense that, like we said, it's going to lead to some interesting things for
Yeah, no,
the
I
universe
think
afterwards.
not having those in credit scenes makes me more excited for Spider-Man Far From Home with everything that happened in Endgame. Like, okay, what's next? How are we going to deal with all this?
And real quick, just thought about this: multiple realities
Yeah.
makes it really easy to get Fantastic Four and X-Men into the universe if they really want to.
So that's the first thing I thought of when it said 5 years later is okay. These other heroes are popping up and dealing with this other all these small level crimes. Fantastic Four, X Men. Yeah.
Maybe we don't know, but maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's Punisher doing, or not Punisher, and Daredevil not having TV shows on Netflix? That's what they're doing. But
Yeah. R.I.P.
R.I.P. So the Hulk, like I said, lays out this knowledge. We get he's kind of like he goes back in time. His job is to go back. He went back with Tony, Cap, uh,
Ant-Man.
Scott, and Hulk was the team that went back to 2012 New York, where Natasha made a point that three of the stones existed in New York at the same time, or they were located in New York at the
Yep.
same time. Mighty convenient, right? Like small universe, apparently.
Yeah. Everything happens in
uh,
New York. Marvel.
it happens.
Yeah.
Uh, so we get a great scene with the Hulk, who, like I say, is at his zen point. We see his old form of Hulk just kill a Chitauri and then slam it with a car, and then slam it with the car, and then jump on the car. Just gratuitous kill, like the dude's dead at this point, right? Like, and we get a great scene where everyone looks at Scott, Tony, and Cap. The camera goes back to them, and they're kind of like, "Whoa!" And uh, you see Hulk in the back, just kind of like embarrassed for himself.
Yeah.
And he's like, and Cap, they have the cool nanotech suits thanks to Tony, so they get their old suits back. I'm sure it's all nanotech, right? Like, if
Yeah.
Cap was like, I want to look like my brand new suit, I want to look like Nomad, I want to look like it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he could have done it. And so he's like, you might need to smash some things, which is a
Takes
weird
his shirt off. Yeah.
parallel from 2012 when he was just like smash. He's just kind of like, you probably have to smash.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, but I think it's gratuitous, and just rips his shirt off and like, just like half-heartedly
Jumps from
screams
the
and
car. Yeah.
punches a car and throws a bike. It's just a quick moment of uh, of comedy, but also kind of like highlighting the fact where Hulk is in this movie. Right, he's found his zen. He doesn't need to do that. He's still powerful, but he doesn't need to like. He can more strategically take out monsters if he needs to. He proceeds to go to. Um, if we want to rewind and talk about Hulk and Thor, we can go back right now and where Hulk had to
Okay.
go. Yeah. Uh, rewind, tangent, coming back.
Back in time.
So when they were trying to gather a team, Rocket, of course, you had a really good talk with Thor and the events of Infinity War, which is a real touching moment, if you remember that one
Yes.
in the back of the
So
ship.
I'm not a Thor fan, but he turned me in Infinity War.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we get Hulk. Two characters are really important to Thor, especially from Ragnarok and Infinity War, which you could argue Ragnarok was when they decided to kind of make Thor go off into a different direction as far as his character, and in my opinion, letting Chris Hemsworth show off his comedic chops, which are really good.
Yeah.
I'm all here for Chris being himself or being more comedic because he's really good at it. Like when he kicks the ball against the glass in Ragnarok and hits him in the face,
Yeah.
and he gets up, just like punches, like ready to go, like that didn't happen. Yeah. Anyways, so they're off to where it turns out New Asgard is in, I believe, it's the town where the Tesseract was hidden in the first Avenger. It's the town that Odin was holed up in Ragnarok whenever he was just hanging out in the grass field dying. That's where New Asgard is. And so the remnants of the people from his ship in Asgard are there. We see Valkyrie. She meets up with Hulk, and he's all like, "Hey, what's up, Valkyrie?" And we get a great line from her where she's like, "I kind of liked you either of the nerd or the
Not
Hulk. I
this
don't
one.
know about this one right here." So it turns out Thor is not in a good spot, and judging from what has happened to him over time, it's a completely understandable spot to be in, to be kind of depressed, to be, for one, like we in the opening of the movie, we see him. He doesn't talk very much at all, right? I think his lines were, "I like this one" to Captain Marvel, which is a great
Yeah.
little scene, and then "I went for the head."
Yeah.
Is like the essentially of his lines. He feels like he failed, and because he didn't go for the head in Infinity War, and right now we can talk about it. Everyone likes to blame Peter Quill. What about Thor?
So
Didn't go
not
for the head.
until after the movie and you get the director's commentary and the writer's thoughts, I never thought like that Thor was that badass enough to when he threw the hammer that he was actually going for the kill shot. I thought he was just trying, to subdue Thanos with that when he was throwing the hammer. And to me, it was interesting that he even made it through the glove power beam or whatever Thanos did. So I didn't blame Thor at all until they made it into the Russos were like, well, it was not all Quill. It's Thor could have went for the head. I'm like, are you sure?
Cap could have let Vision die.
Yeah. So, all right. So,
Anyway,
since you brought up Vision, real quick, Thanos turns back time at that point
right,
to re to mend the stone.
right,
And then also, there's the only other time I think we did time travel was Doctor Strange.
right.
How does that mesh? I think they're like completely different and they don't really work. But do you think it's a different? There's a different timeline somewhere where the Mind Stone was destroyed by Scarlet Witch?
I think that the time stone works in a different way. So we've seen so far with the time stone, and this is part of that Polygon article I mentioned earlier. You should go read it. It's great. The time stone we've seen rewinds time in a certain area that the user is focusing on. Initially was an apple in Doctor Strange, right? And that's always weird too because like he eats it, right? And then he goes back in time and now it's a full apple. And then he goes to the seedling and then all the way to where it's rotten.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept because like where did the bite go? Did it come out of you? Did like
Okay.
like where's
Yeah, I
this?
forgot
Anyways,
about that
let's
part.
not think about energy creation at this point right now
Okay.
and laws of thermodynamics. So he and then we see when he does Hong Kong in Doctor Strange, he's able to do the whole city, which is one of the coolest scenes in the MCU. Is the backwards fight that they have, where like every time's going backwards and they're fighting forwards. And then of course he rewinds essentially just Vision. Uh, the resulting explosion of the Mind Stone, Thanos rewinds time. What the time travel we're doing as the heroes are doing to go get the stones involves the quantum realm, which as we know is chaos, and
Okay.
it's
Oh,
quite it's a little bit different, right? It's a different time
yeah. I'm on
alteration.
board now. I think for the yeah, it's just like you said, it's only on a specific point or specific area, so it's not really impacting the entire universe. Just like
You're
with the Dormammu fight, where he just keeps repeating it.
repeating time, yeah.
Yeah.
You make a great point that it probably should have some ramifications, but they've kind of shown that it's had smaller ramifications with the time manipulation.
Okay.
But cool.
Yeah.
So Thor is
Yeah. It's not being a responsible king, drunk,
nope,
playing video games.
fat,
Is not in shape.
looks
Yes.
like melted
Not
ice
doesn't
cream.
keep himself. He has a very long hair, unkempt beard.
He finally
Uh,
looks like a Viking though, so that's
yeah,
fine.
very out of shape Viking. Yes.
uh, cussing at people playing Fortnite. Korg and Meek are there. They're a great callback from Thor Ragnarok. I love that they're there.
Yeah. They're
That
not
they're hanging
helping
out.
this. They're encouraging the behavior. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, Korg. Yeah,
They're
he gets some
they're
stuff
they're
done, but
yeah.
you know what it was is that Thor didn't print out pamphlets, so Korg didn't know that this was a thing, and
Gotcha.
wasn't.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
he was
true.
just relaxing. So we see that Thor's in a bad place. He's real drunk. Hulk tries to have like a heart to heart with him, but Thor is kind of broken at this point.
Yep.
He he lost his mom, which comes back later in the events of Thor: The Dark World. By the way, shout out to this movie for making largely what most people think is the weakest entry in the MCU, Thor: Dark World, kind of important.
Yeah,
And
I was like, they're going to this one, okay. Which I
um,
didn't really mind it that much, but yeah, that is definitely a popular opinion.
yeah, he lost his dad. His sister came back from death or from imprisonment and destroyed his hometown.
Yeah.
His brother died again by Thanos, probably for real this time.
All
Uh,
of his friends, half his planet, maybe Sif, which we don't know. No
we don't know
explanation for her
yet.
yet.
The other warrior's dead. Sif
But
may be
yeah,
alive.
other warriors
Uh,
and Heimdall.
I'm his best
Yeah,
friend, dead.
yeah,
Uh, he's been through some shit, and we get to see him kind of trying to work through it in the events of Infinity War, where he still had
yeah.
hope. He still had the confidence that he was going to kill Thanos, and then he has a shot and he fails, and he's feeling it. And when they do end up in the very beginning, they find out they don't have hope to get the stones back, and he just kills Thanos. You kind of think like he thought, well, I'm good now. I killed the guy, right? Like I'm fine.
Yeah.
But clearly he's not. He's not worked through everything that all the emotions and the trauma he's gone through, and that's why he's in a very bad state. He's just not. He's not admitting it. And Hulk tries to help him, and there's a great Thor Hulk moment where he's like, "You remember the time where I was lost? You know who helped me out of it?" And he's like, Natasha?" And he's like, "No, you did. You helped me." And they finally convince him to get on the ship because Rocket's like, "Yeah, well, we got beer on the ship," and he's like, "Oh,
Right.
what kind?" And then they get on the ship. So we feel like he's kind of. It seems like he's in to help a little bit, enough to get on the ship, right? Because if all he wanted was beer, he didn't have to leave. He could have just been fine
Yeah, I
leaving.
think it was more just like I have nothing else to do. I can finally get out, and I'm friends with Hulk, so and Rocket. So yeah,
We get a great couple scenes with him looking like the Big Lebowski. We get a couple jokes
yeah,
from, of course, RDJ about it. Of course, they would have jokes. Uh, and his mission on the time heist, we get a great scene with him where he's trying to tell them where the ether is. He's like,
yeah.
it's
It's
actually
not
more of
really
a
a stone. Yeah,
yeah, it's actually more of a viscous liquid. It's just not stone. We should probably amend that. Whoever told that, she's an old flame of mine, and yeah, things didn't work out, and then my mom died, and just like
yeah,
just like crazy processing these things right now in this moment, as
yeah.
opposed to constructively, and it's a great little scene. He puts on his suit to go in the time heist, and he still hasn't quite worked out really anything at this point. He's willing to help. He's kind of on board.
Yeah.
He's at least talking about stuff now, as opposed to cussing out nude dude 69 in Fortnite. And his job is he's going back to Asgard to get the ether, aka the Reality Stone, with Rocket. They're tag teaming again. I like them together. Good stuff.
Uh,
Plan is you go talk to your ex-girlfriend, I'll stab her, get the stone, we'll get out of here. And
right.
Thor is not ready for this, to not only
No.
dig up the scabs of his old flame, but to be here in general. Like
Right. The that plane is destroyed. Yeah.
yeah. So he runs away. It was fun. Rocket does his own thing, which is pretty good. He's just sneaking around Asgard, stabbing Natalie Portman and getting the stone away.
I was
We get
surprised they got her. So
yeah.
that was pretty cool.
I think they got her. It might have. I could definitely see her scene of waking up being extra footage from Thor: The Dark World, and I can see that one scene where she's like asking for clothes. That could have been anybody. That was so far
Yeah.
away and not in
Yeah.
focus that could have just been any brunette that they could have gotten for the role.
Yeah.
So maybe they got her back, maybe they didn't. But like I would be surprised too because she's in the end with MCU in kind of bad terms with Marvel Studios.
But she was at the premiere, so that's why I thought it was new footage.
Maybe, maybe. And Thor runs away and he's spying on his mom. And remember, in the events of Thor: The Dark World, his mom dies. So this is the first time he's been able to talk to her since she died. And of course, his mom is a witch and taught Loki all the trickster shit he knows. So she
Yeah.
immediately sees him and immediately knows, like, you're not my Thor.
Yeah.
The future's been hard on you. That's kind of what she says. And we get a great scene with Thor where he's like, I'm not from the future. And then immediately like, I'm totally from the future. Just like
Yeah.
crying. And he finally kind of he makes his progression in this scene where he's like, I'm supposed to be king and I'm doing a horrible job. This is what I'm supposed to be. And her kind of lesson is like, well, people often fail at what they're supposed to be. You're
Yeah.
supposed just be who you're meant to be, like who you need to be, who you're supposed, like who you should
Who
be.
you
Like
are. Yeah.
be who you are. Don't be who you're supposed to be. He had the pressure of the kingdom shoved on him. He was when he was young and cocky. He wasn't ready for it. When he was maybe emotionally ready for it, he said, "No, I'm not the right person for this." And the only reason he became king is because his dad got killed by his sister, right? Like,
Yeah.
so he's kind of been putting off this for a while, maybe because he doesn't want it. Maybe he doesn't think he does.
Yeah.
That's not who he is. Maybe he's not supposed to be king of Asgard. And so this is kind of the emotional scene with his mom, which we could talk shit about Thor Dark World all day long
Yeah.
if we want. But the death of Frigga still gets to me every time I watch it. Like they
yeah,
handled
I
that
don't really have a problem with that. Yeah.
they handled that very well, and there's raw emotion in that, and that's a movie that still touches me
Yeah.
when I watch it.
Even with
So
Loki's reaction, I think might be the hardest hitting of
yeah,
that. Yeah.
and then the funeral itself was just beautiful and like feelings. And so he kind of gets a pep talk from his mom, and now he's kind of all in. He's still not emotionally stable, right? Like, but he is ready. He's ready to be who he was supposed to be, an Avenger, a hero.
Right.
He's ready to go. We get
Yeah.
a great scene where Rocket's like, I got the thing. We need to go. Oh, hey, it's your mom. And she's like, what's up, talking rabbit? Like the
Yeah.
rabbit joke. And he gets a great scene where he's like, hold on real quick before we leave. And sticks his hand out. Rocket's like, what's going on? She's like, sometimes it takes
Sometimes
a
it
while.
takes a while. Yeah.
He gets Mjolnir and he's excited. He's like, I'm still worthy. And then leaves. And I don't know what you thought about in that moment when they left back to the present. But I was like, Thor of the past is going to be real pissed off for a while. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So
he's,
new timeline has started. He got no hammer.
I mean, he doesn't need it. We kind of explore that in Ragnarok, but it only challenges your power or channels your power. It doesn't. It's not actually your power. Uh, so we go back. He goes back. He has Mjolnir. Uh, again, we get the scene of Black Widow dead. He's very much like, no, we got the stones. We could bring her back. So we see that he went from pure just aloofness to actually caring now, right? But we also kind of see that he's just emotionally a little still unstable. He's a little too highs and lows. He maybe isn't best suited. And later, whenever they're discussing who should put the gauntlet on, he's like, I'll do it. I'll do it. I need to
I'm the
mend
strongest.
my
Yeah.
sins. I'm the strongest Avenger. I should do this. And it's kind of like, no, dude, you're just not in the space.
Nobody even responds to him.
Yeah, there's
Hulk's
like,
like, I'm the one to do it.
yeah, we're glad you're back, and you're in and you're ready to be a hero, but you need to take some time off, man.
Yeah, the whole arc for him, it didn't really hit for me. Just like I don't like the dumb, goofy guy. I get it. He felt horrible and he felt like he failed, guilty for not going for the head, which I think was a stretch in that moment. To me, he's like, I don't know, 100 yards away and throws a hammer. But I don't know. It's just not. And I know Marvel is known for humanizing the characters, but as far as Thor, this alien god, like, come on, man, your people need you, and you're effing around on some both. Your parents raised you better than Odin, Frigga. They want you to be better than this. Like,
He's been through some shit, man. Like they did teach him lessons,
yeah,
but you can understand why he's kind of fallen from grace of a sorts. And I think now that we know how the movie ends, I think we're going to see him progress and become who he's supposed to be with the new team, right? Which I'm
yeah,
excited for.
yeah. Which I'm excited that they're together and I don't have to deal with them anymore. Yeah, because and then
um,
also like I think the when he's transitioned to the kind of surfer guy in Ragnarok, I was like, man, I like the Shakespearean, even though obviously that's an unpopular opinion. I like that version of the character.
he
So
still has
yeah,
that
I'm glad
nobleness, right? Like even as goofy as he was in Ragnarok, he still had moments
a bit.
that where you see the regalness, like especially with the great scene with him and Loki in Ragnarok, where he's like, "I thought the world of you, brother, but you disappointed me." Like that's a great scene of what you're asking for.
Right.
It's just they're also bringing out him being goofy sometimes, and I think Chris is so good at bringing humor that I'm all for it. Like I think they can
I
also
think
still bring some
I
somber
thought it was
moments, but
I thought it was perfectly balanced in Infinity War where he was still doing the one-liners with Pratt and Rocket, and then but you still get that one line which is probably the best line in Infinity War for me from the heroes is like, "What else could I lose?" And I was like, "Finally, Thor,
yeah.
finally!" And so yeah, so
And we
for this movie, it was there was none of that. So for me, it was I'm kind of out on him.
well, he gets his moment at the end whenever he gives up the throne to Valkyrie. Like that would be his grown up
Okay.
moment in the movie. Uh, but anyways, he's fighting with Hulk, and I guess this is where we tie back up with Hulk, right? So he has that moment with the
1 second.
ancient. Go for
Yeah,
it.
with the ancient one, when ancient one pops him out like she did Doctor Strange, I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was
Because
awesome.
Hulk was so confident and cocky, like, okay, fine, I'm the Hulk, I'm just gonna take it. And she was like, no. So I thought
He
that was
was
great.
real
Okay,
cocky. He was
yeah,
real cocky.
he
He
was
was
like,
like,
I'm the
I
best now.
actually bet. Well, you
Yeah,
can't have it. I'm gonna have to take it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
one of the
just gonna
smartest
take it.
men in the world, and I'm one of the strongest men in the world. So yeah, nope.
Yeah, that was good. Good stuff. They and we get a scene with just Ruffalo being Ruffalo, like his physical acts as opposed to being in the gray
Yes,
suit.
yeah.
So that was good too. The kind of another excuse to have him in there.
Uh-huh.
Bringing back Tilda Swinton, pretty cool. I liked that I heard she was here.
Yeah,
Um, I liked her flawed character in Doctor Strange, so it was kind of cool to
yeah.
see her again. Um, so
Lots of just, and going back to just the way Marvel does trailers. There's so much of that stuff that fans had no
right,
idea about her, Jane Foster, any of those characters showing up.
you see how they do trailers, and then you realize that this is how you should be doing trailers. Like you can't
Uh,
ruin things. Um,
and I think, but it's also benefited them that they don't have to sell the trailer. Like
that's
they can
true.
just give you a little taste, and you know they're gonna bring it in the third act. They don't have to reveal anything. Whereas some of the
Yeah,
other movies are like, look at our big, huge set piece in the third act. Come watch it in theaters. Where Marvel is like, trust us. Here's our
yeah.
little bit of character teasing, and come see all this crazy stuff.
True. And like I was telling Travis whenever leading up to this movie, the Endgame trailers, the beginning ones, were probably the worst trailers from a trailer perspective. Because like if you had no idea,
Yeah,
didn't watch Infinity War, you don't know anything.
no,
Like that
that makes
trailer does
sense.
nothing. Like
Whereas if you see them all, like one of the, I think it was the second trailer where they kind of show some of the early movies and they blend it in where they are now. Like that's
right,
emotional.
right.
So
Yeah, it gets me into feels, but for someone who's not invested or this is the first time hearing about
like
this,
this
or
is
maybe they just
boring.
put it off. Like
Yeah,
the trailers are bad,
yeah,
but they're good just for us because they know their audience and we're in,
yeah.
right? Like it's all we needed. Um, you're right. So where are we at? We get Thor wanting to get the gauntlet, but everyone's like, "No, bro, you're way too. You're getting back. You're getting leaning to the right side of stable, but
Yeah.
let's calm down, slow your roll."
Yes.
Uh,
Hulk
and
says he has
Hulk,
to do it. He's the one. It gives off a bunch of gamma radiation, and I'm all gamma radiation, so I can do it.
he kind of has that line where it's almost like I was meant for this,
Yeah,
and
which I
it kind
love.
of yeah, it kind of comes back to his overall arc of getting to the Zen point, right? Because if he was Banner, he probably wouldn't be able to do this. And if he was Hulk, could he concentrate long enough
Right.
to
No.
snap it? So the fact that he's Professor Hulk is the only way that this is going to work.
Hey, so
Uh,
what was your understanding of the snap? So the whole build up to this, and I think maybe Gamora is one of the first ones to explain it in Infinity War, is like if you snap your fingers, half of all living creatures die. And so
so
in this movie, they make it if you snap, it's whatever you're thinking, that's what comes true.
yeah,
Kind
no,
of.
I thought it was cheesy in Infinity War from the sense that in the comics it was a snap. But I think it was more bravado from what I remember
Okay,
reading.
okay, okay.
Kind of like
It was
and
just
maybe
like
even in
abracadabra, but really,
right
he could have clenched his fist. He could have done anything. Yeah,
right, and that's kind of like the whole in our culture when we say something with a snap, it's as
yeah,
easy as that, right? Like it's just a visual representation that this easy thing that I'm doing,
yeah.
I could do it. That's all it takes from me. Lift of the pinky, like whatever other kind of I could do this in my sleep, like little sayings and idioms like that. So in the comics, I don't think it was the mechanism that caused everything, but it was bravado from Thanos to be like, "I've ended your world," right? And I think at the start of Infinity War, that's kind of Gamora highlighting the fact that that's how easy, how much power you have with it, that you can end the world like that. And in this movie, they kind of take it and make it almost kind of like a spell, if you will, like to use it, have it snap, and that's how it works.
Yeah.
But honestly, at this point, it just might be shorthand for the audience,
Yeah.
and it's a visual representation that you did the thing, right?
Yeah.
You just
Without it, they would have to. I mean, we have questions right now, but without it, they would have to explain. Okay, just concentrate really hard on what you want,
yeah.
and channel the power of all 6 stones. And yeah,
Make
that's
sure you
that's
don't
like 30
forget them.
seconds.
You got to think of
Yeah.
all of them. You can't forget one
Yeah.
because then it's not going to work.
Right.
So I think it's just a shorthand device to kind of move the story along, and I'm fine with it. It was a little cringy, but it's just whatever. It's a visual and audio cue
I think
to
it
save.
worked for Hulk more because it was just like, okay, just undo what
Yeah,
happened. But
Control
then
Z,
later when they use it, it's like, uh,
Command Z. Um, so he does put it on. He's clearly getting messed up. His arm's getting messed up. It's totally eating into him.
which
He's
we saw with
handling it.
Thanos. Yeah.
Yeah, he's handling it. But so when Thanos puts the glove on, it doesn't seem to be eating him away. He seems powerful enough to wield it in the gauntlet that he has and not get messed
Yeah.
up and be fine. Hulk has the nanobot Iron Man glove that they've repurposed.
Yeah. Thanks, Iron Man.
Good call, good call. And it is kind of deteriorating him alive while he has it on. He's struggling just to have it on, not to even use it.
Yeah.
Using it, of course, expends energy and he kind of gets messed up, but essentially messes up his arm and kind of a little bit of his face. And that might be why he doesn't Hulk out too much, because that probably took out a lot of him
Yeah.
for the final battle scene. Because he doesn't really have any much to do in the final battle scene.
Yeah. Disappointing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, but you could kind of understand it, right? Like
Yeah, it works. I think a part of me was hoping that we get another face off. You know, he to get a little redemption from the Thanos beatdown in Infinity
just
War.
one two to Thanos, just like but he
Yeah.
was boxing. He learned how to box while he was, just like
Yeah, just maybe an elbow or something.
And so we have Banner snapping. He brought back everyone who got snapped back in the events of Infinity War and brought him back 5 years later to our current point in time.
Well, at the time, we don't know it. They walk out. They look through a window. They're like, okay, this tree is blooming and there's birds and stuff. So that's how they.
So you get Paul Rudd doing that. We also forgot the scene we talk about with Hawkeye where his wife calls him, which hit me.
Yes.
The minute I saw her picture, I was like, oh man, she's alive. And you see him, he doesn't even know how to. He's like, huh, like hun, like he did. He's just. And it's such an awesome moment of like happiness, but we also knew that Thanos got teleported by Bad Nebula earlier, and it just gets interrupted so fucking hard, right? Like Paul Rudd, Scott, looks like he got messed up. You see him shrink. I don't know if you caught that. Like when the explosion happens, he shrinks, so he's probably okay.
Yeah.
But it's so fast, and shit hits the fan so fast, and I'm kind of glossed over that with the Hawkeye and Black Widow run arc,
right.
But
so that's another timeline created when Thanos jumps to the future because that timeline no longer has him.
It's very true.
Yeah.
They were probably happy about it. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
right?
no, for sure.
So they get Brock back from the future. We'll talk about them more hopefully in later episodes because this movie I can keep talking about this movie forever. And Hulk kind of doesn't have much to do for the rest of the movie, and like you said, that's a little bit disappointing. And I can definitely see that. They do kind of explain it, but it doesn't make it any less kind of a bummer that he doesn't have too much to do. Thor, on the other hand, he's ready to go.
Thanos baits them.
Yeah, so Thanos is just waiting there for them. He came back in time. He learned from Nebula's mind, their connection, the two Nebulas, Nebula 1 and Nebula 2. That he learns what happened. He won. They are doing this time heist to come back, get the stones, and undo what he did. And he's like, I'm not about that life. I'm going to stop this. Yeah. So he's cocky as hell, just sitting on a rock with his double battle sword and just waiting for him. And we see our three main heroes, Thor, Tony, and Cap. See him like, has he done anything yet? He's like, no. He's like, well, he doesn't have the stones, so we should definitely do this now, right? Like we should kill him now because he's weak. And they're like, it's a trap. And he's like, I don't care. None of them care. And then Thor's just like, well, as long as we're on the same page. And then he gets
armor
Stormbreaker and Mjolnir.
and beard braided.
Yeah, beard
Yeah.
braids, and then we get the armor, which is adjusted for his beer gut, and
Yeah.
uh, he's ready to fight. So we get some great scenes uh, with Thor here, using both weapons as best as he can, getting some good hits on Thanos. We'll gloss over a great scene because we're going to talk about Cap probably in the later episode.
Mhm.
But great scene, but it's a lot of good fight scenes. He's tearing shit up. A lot happens in this fight scene, and I'm not sure if we're ever going to be able to ever do it justice or ever describe, but we'll have cool bits.
No.
But as far as Thor bits, he does that thing where the Iron Man picks up his thing and he hits the back and like charges a blast at Thanos.
Yep.
A lot of like teamwork between the people, so it's really cool to see Thor get used like that. Valkyrie also brought her unicorn, which is cool. I don't know where she keeps it.
Whoa, Pegasus. Did it have a unicorn?
It was yeah, you're right. It's probably Pegasus. It probably had a horn. Like, why stop, right? Let's just go ahead and throw a horn on there. Like,
okay.
It's a mythical creature. She brought her Pegasus. My bad. And so we have the fight. Thor almost gets killed, but ends up surviving for reasons we'll talk about later. And he does a battle scream at one point, which is really cool. But anyways, so at the end of the movie, when they win, they kill Thanos. He's at the funeral, of course. At the end scene funeral.
Wait,
but
somebody dies?
Oh my god. The key thing I want to highlight here is after the battle's over, kind of how his arc ends. After he's found out who he should be. This is who he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be a hero. He goes back to Asgard, New Asgard, and he relinquishes his title as King of Asgard to Valkyrie because she's a better leader. And if we're all honest, yeah, she is.
Well, I mean, we've seen her super drunk in Ragnarok for most of the time, and makes herself a hero at the end. And then we see her here. Yeah, she basically, I guess, it's assumed that she's running the city.
Yeah.
While he's playing Fortnite. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
which is still relevant 5 years later.
Yeah, totally. And then like half the game devs died, right? Like, are they going to make new games? No.
Yep.
So we leave off with him saying, "I'm going to be who I'm supposed to be. I'm going to be who I am," and he hitches a ride on the Guardians of the Galaxy ship and calls them the Asgardians of the Galaxy, which is a nice little touch. That was a comic. Yeah. It involves none of them, but it is a thing.
Oh, yeah.
You wonder if Guardians of the Galaxy 3 will start off with Asgardians of the Galaxy and then maybe like a cross out and then like a rewrite or something. Like they could do that. Like James Gunn can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And so that kind of sets up his arc. He's going to go into space and do some space stuff, do some good stuff, some bad stuff, bit of both. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be part of the Guardians of the Galaxy crew, and I think I'm for it. They through Infinity War and a little bit in Endgame, they definitely have chemistry, right? Like him and Chris have this budding of like kind of rivalry, big brother, little brother.
I think it was, and I don't know if they had already kicked James Gunn out, but to me in Endgame it was really forced. In Infinity War it was like almost perfect, like their banter back and forth, and it was like so just authentic. But in this one I'm just like there was just a funeral. Like, can we move on to real characters? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Like, stop.
I did like that part where he's like, "No, you're in charge.
Yeah,
you're in charge. You're in charge." Just says it like 4 times. Yeah. I like it, but I like Chris. So that's kind of where he leaves off. Hulk. He has his arms in a band. He helps Cap go back and deliver the stones, and I'm not sure where Hulk's going to go from here. Like we mentioned, unfortunately, his rights, his solo movie rights are held by another studio, so that's why they haven't made one since the original Edward Norton Hulk movie, and that's why he's always been have to be a buddy in these movies.
Yeah.
So it's a little unfortunate. I'm not sure where he's going to go. I
wonder if how they're going to handle those characters is kind of just be advisors for the new team. It's going to be hard to explain sitting what you're one of the strongest heroes in a big team up movie.
He could be like he could be like a Hank McCoy role, just at the base.
Yeah.
Doing science stuff and coming out when they need him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I could see that, and then Thor doing cosmic stuff, which is cool. I think that would be fun to see.
Yeah,
James Gunn write all that, and
I
maybe
think
we'll see. Maybe we'll see
that's,
some more stoic, royal, regal Thor in moments for Guardians, right? Like, um, I think it's an interesting touch. I think I like where both those they didn't have too much of arcs. So the Hulk didn't have too much of an arc, but it's tough because he can't have his own solo movie. Uh,
I
and
think
then
we or at least me, I want so much more of him because he doesn't have the solo movies to do the character development. So maybe that's why, like, no matter how much they do with him, it's gonna you're gonna feel wanting.
right,
But
and then
definitely in that scene when the three heroes, like you said, the three main heroes turn the corner, like Hulk is one of those guys. Like he's
yeah,
supposed to be cutting the corner with them.
yeah,
He is a tier one character. So it sucks that they don't make the solo movies. But I don't know if it's because Universal won't let them. I think they can work something out with Sony. I feel like because they've had the two movies that were kind of not failures, but they weren't as successful as they wanted them to be. I think maybe they just are having trouble trying to figure out a solo Hulk movie.
maybe it is kind of a tough movie now that he's Professor Hulk. It's a little easier, but beforehand it's a little tough, right? Because you always have a guy that can be an actor and then no acting besides just kind of
Right.
being animalistic. So, but that's kind of how they wrapped up, and it might have been a little bit of a bummer for you, but I kind of like where they left off. I was wondering if they're going to make another Thor movie the way Ragnarok hit, right, and the
Yeah.
general positiveness that that movie had. Were they going to do Thor 4? Like, how does that even look
Yeah, with
since
no
Asgard's
Asgard.
gone?
Yep.
And they answered my question with like he's part of the Guardians now. It's like okay, yeah,
I think
let's
it
go.
was great. I don't know who thought of it or what. I guess a better way to put it is what part of the process did they think, yeah, let's put him with Guardians? Maybe it was when they first saw the Pratt and Hemsworth chemistry.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that's where he should be.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. So I think this is a good point to end this first episode. Like I said, I can talk about this movie a long time, and I'm glad you're here with me because we talked about it for 2 hours already,
Yeah,
and we haven't even talked about Tony or Cap. And I think the next episode is going to
they're
be
not
those two.
really important. So I mean,
Yeah,
we
they're
can probably just shut it down now.
yeah. Let's just give up. I do feel like we could do a whole another episode just on those two, but the idea is to go through those two next episode, and then also maybe hit on some of the newer guard and some other bits, maybe like overall story, kind of what we liked and didn't like. Paul Rudd again, I'm going to keep hyping him up and just great moments that he brought into this movie. That's the plan. We definitely got more to talk about. I think at least one episode more, definitely. Maybe I don't know if third. I don't know if you watch it again. Maybe you'll want to talk about something.
Okay,
But
we'll see.
cool. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. We're gonna get out of here. Leave some comments, like, subscribe. What did you think of this movie? Again, we're gonna have another part coming soon. Hopefully, you'll get this video and audio out pretty quickly. Unfortunately, this week, kind of the timeline normally is kind of all jacked up, so we'll see where this goes.
Haha, timeline.
Yeah, timelines,
Ding.
time, space, the time stone. But anyways, it's good talking to you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.